Hello everyone, welcome back. This is a new lecture in your course, Vagrant Essentials Build Portable Environments by Eduonix. My name is Ahmed, and in this section we are starting with our first Vagrant machine in this course. We start playing with it. In the previous two lectures we have seen how we can download and deploy a box, and we understood what a box is from Vagrant, and we use that box to deploy a Vagrant virtual machine or a guest Vagrant machine. Now let's see how we can examine this machine. Let's see how we can communicate with this machine to do our work. So the first thing you may have noticed that there is no GUI for that machine. When we downloaded and installed and deployed our Ubuntu 16.04 Vagrant guest, we interacted with it using the SSH command. We opened a terminal screen with the machine. We did not have the chance to view the beautiful GUI of Ubuntu, GNOME, or Unity, or any GUI desktop environment. That is because by default, Vagrant starts machines in headless mode. Communication is done only through the command line. And most of the cases, if you are working with web servers or any application servers in general, most of the time you don't need the GUI for any reason. You're working with a server, so you only need a terminal session with that server. You're going to start the services, you're going to stop the services, you're going to configure the services and restart them. You don't normally need GUI for working with servers. Now, how can you determine whether the machine is running or not? That is the role of a command called Vagrant status. Let's ensure that we are in the correct directory first. Okay, we are in the correct directory. It's users Ahmed Vagrant VMs Ubuntu 16, and whatever command you run inside this directory is going to be run on the machine that is deployed in that directory. Remember, in the previous lecture we said that Vagrant considers each directory to be a complete, separate, isolated project. So if I run Vagrant status like this means that I am going to query the machine that is deployed in this directory for its status. Let's hit enter, and it's gonna give me the status of the machine. The status is default running, and it is running on VirtualBox virtualization platform. And it is also giving you a very helpful machine. The VM is running. To stop this machine, you can run Vagrant halt to shut it down forcefully, or you can run Vagrant suspend to simply suspend the virtual machine. And if you want to start it again, you simply run Vagrant up. We're going to have a look at those commands in detail, but as you can see here, Vagrant is very generous. It gives you help messages in case you forgot a command or you forgot the mechanism to communicate with the machine in some manner or another. It is giving you this helpful message to instruct you how you can start, stop, and so on and so forth. And we have previously seen in a previous lecture how to gain access to the machine through SSH. You simply issue the command Vagrant SSH, and if you are on Windows, you may want to install OpenSSH first using a package like Cygwin, which can be downloaded freely from the URL that is written here in the slide. So if you have a look here at cygwin.com, this is the website that is hosting the Cygwin. And as we said, Cygwin is just a software that lets you use several of the Linux-based commands and tools on a Windows box. So to download it, just click on this fresh install. Okay, and you download this setup.exe file. Of course, I cannot open it here. Okay, and run this setup. It's very easy actually. It's just a wizard that will install all the necessary files and directories on your Windows machine, and then you can use Vagrant SSH to access your machine through the terminal. If you can't, or if you don't want to download Cygwin, you can simply use a command like PuTTY. Just go to Google and search for download PuTTY. It is a very well-known SSH client for Windows. Just click on the first link that appears, download PuTTY version 0.67. Just download this client, okay, and it's going to be used by Vagrant to access your machine through SSH. Now, in order to start working with your machine, you are not confined with just the SSH session or the terminal session. Most developers work with their own browsers, their own text editors, their own IDEs, and so on and so forth. So let's say, for example, that you have Sublime Text or Notepad++ or TextMate, whatever editor you want to use, and you are using Vagrant. You can use shared folders, and those shared folders are a means to transfer files between your guest machine and your host machine. Vagrant allows files to be shared from the host to the guest and vice versa. This enables developers to continue using their own customized editors on the comfort of their own machines without worrying about uploading changed files to the remote host. So imagine how things could be if you do not have shared folder between you and the guest. This means that any changed file, for example, PHP file or HTML file or any source code file that you change on your local machine and you want to upload it to the server to be reflected, this has to be uploaded using a tool like SFTP or FTP or whatever tool you use to upload your files to the server. Of course, this wasted a lot of time and effort, but using shared folders, it is very easy to just use this shared folder to access your files, and they can be, and any changes you do become immediately reflected to the virtual machine because you are actually editing those files inside the machine. A default one shared directory is created, which is /vagrant. Let's have a look at it quickly. Okay, let's clear the screen and ensure that we are in the correct directory. And let's issue vagrant SSH to access the machine. Okay, and if you go to /vagrant inside the machine, vagrant with small v, you'll find that it contains the vagrant file, and this is because this is the project directory. The shared directory by default is the project directory between you and the guest machine. Okay, so this is the project directory. This is /user/vagrant VMs /Ubuntu 16. This is the directory that is shared inside the machine. And to elaborate more, let's create a test file, test.txt. So let's write anything inside that text file. Let's say, for example, this is the shared folder. Okay, and let's exit this file, and let's exit this session by typing exit. You can also press Ctrl-D if you want to in order to quickly exit an SSH session with the Vagrant VM or with any SSH session in general. You can just issue the exit command or Ctrl-D. Anyway, now let's use our Finder in order to open this current directory in a GUI window, and as you can see here, this is Ubuntu 16 and this is the text that we have just created. This is the shared folder, okay, and whatever I put here will be reflected inside the virtual machine. So this way I can very easily open my favorite text editor, let's say TextMate for example, and I'm already opening the Vagrant file. I can, let's say for example, create a new file. Okay, let's say this is an HTML file. Okay, I just write the opening and closing tags, and I'm gonna save it inside this directory, this shared directory on Ubuntu 16. As you can see here, this is the pull path. Users Ahmed Vagrant VMs Ubuntu 16. I'm gonna save this file index.html, and I can start working with this file the way I want inside my favorite text editor, which is TextMate. Okay, and once I'm finished, I can easily go to my Vagrant VM. Let's issue Vagrant SSH again, and I can go to /vagrant only to find that I have index.html with the text that I have written in my text editor. So this is just awesome. You can use your favorite text editor, your favorite IDE, your favorite tools, development tools, and you don't have to upload the files by any means to the server because they are already reflected through the shared folders. And actually, you're not confined to only one directory to be shared on the Vagrant VM. You can create as many shared directories as you need. Just edit the Vagrant file in order to create more shares. So let's have a look. So let's say, for example, that you want to share the /opt on the machine. So let's go to this setting that starts with config the VM synced folder, uncomment it by removing the hash at the start or the pound sign at the start of the line. And this command or this setting has two arguments. The first one is the path of the shared folder relative to the host. If you forget this, you can just read the comment. As I said, this file is heavily commented. As you can see here, the first argument is the path on the host to the actual folder. And this is relative to the current directory of the project. So if I am standing here in, let's exit this machine. Okay, if I'm standing here /user/ahmed/vagrant VMs /Ubuntu 16, this is the relative directory on which I'm standing. If I created here a directory that is called, for example, opt, okay, and I cd into that opt, I can simply write here opt. I don't have to write the full path starting from /users/ahmed. I only have to write the directory name relative to this home path. Okay, and the second argument is where this shared folder has to be mapped on the Vagrant machine. So in our case, I want to have the /opt. Let's save this file. And in order for this file to get reflected on the machine, I'll have to shut down and restart the machine. Okay, but Vagrant provides a command specifically for that, which is called reload. So I just issue Vagrant with a subcommand reload, which will gracefully shut down the machine and start it again. And it will apply all the changes that we've made to the Vagrant file. Okay, and if you go inside opt and touch a new file, let's say test. Let's go here to opt on the host machine. And you can find here that test is there. Okay, and that error message that we've seen means that it couldn't mount the default share, which is Vagrant, /Vagrant, because we have omitted it from the Vagrant file. And in order to get rid of this message, let's disable the Vagrant share, the Vagrant default share. And in order to do that, let's add the following line: config.vm.synced_folder, okay, and then give it the current directory, which is the project directory, and give it also the file system on which is going to be mapped to, which is /Vagrant, and then add the third argument here, which is disabled : true. This instructs Vagrant to disable the default share and work only with opt mapped to /opt on the guest machine. And of course, in order to apply this, we need to reload the machine again. So let's exit and issue Vagrant reload. And hopefully this time you're not going to see that web message that appeared. Okay, and as you can see here, the message no longer appears. It is mounting /opt, so to /users Ahmed Vagrant VMs Ubuntu 16/opt. So that proves that we can not only share the default share, which is /Vagrant, but we can also disable this default share and replace it with some other shares of our own. We can share any directory in the guest VM to the host VM as long as we have the appropriate permissions to do so, OS-wise, of course. But a word of advice: it is highly recommended that shared folders be used only to share source files. Files that require heavy processing or I/O, like binary database files, should not be placed in shared folders because of the performance penalty that this incurs. So if you are working, for example, with a database or with any binary files that need heavy processing from the OS side, these are not recommended to be placed in shared folders, and that is because shared folders by default incur some extra I/O or extra stress on the OS resources, specifically the I/O related resources. So if you place files that need heavy processing on those shared folders, you may experience some slowness in the operations. So it is recommended that those files be placed in non-shared folders and leave the shared folders only to source files. Now, in the coming lecture, we're going to start by visiting the network access mode in Vagrant, so stay tuned.